Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to the Inside Halos podcast, the home of the fan. My name is Bryan Whitfield. I'm the founder and creator of Inside Halos, and it feels good to be back behind the mic for the first time in quite a while. If you're new here, you can follow us on all socials at Inside Halos on Instagram, X, and TikTok, and check out InsideHalos.com for articles, updates, rumors, and more. This podcast is available on Spotify and YouTube as well, so make sure to subscribe if you want to stay plugged in all off-season long. Today, we're catching up on everything that's gone down around the Angels and getting you ready for the winter meetings that start on Sunday. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Before we dive into the winter meetings, I want to start with what the Angels have already done this offseason, because it's been a busy offseason so far, a lot more busy than most people expected. So let's go over some moves the team has made and set the stage for what could happen next. So the first order of business for the Angels was to hire a new manager to replace Ron Washington, who has now been hired by the San Francisco Giants to be their infield coach. Good move by the San Francisco Giants, and I wish Wash nothing but the best. Health issues unfortunately arose and ended up ending his tenure with the Angels a little shorter than it probably should have. However, they did hire Kurt Suzuki, former Angels catcher, to take over as Angels manager. Overall, I like the move. I think Kurt Suzuki is going to do a great job. Catchers typically make great managers, and Stephen Vogt has been Kurt Suzuki's comp on who Kurt Suzuki could end up being. Stephen Vogt, obviously, very good manager, was a MLB catcher for a very long time before becoming the Cleveland Guardians manager. And he's done extremely well with Cleveland. So if Kurt Suzuki can go ahead and replicate that in any form, that would be perfect. Doesn't have a long contract, though, however, as he was hired on a one-year deal. And that is in line with Perry Minasian. So we're going to see how this 1 year goes. It is an important year for both Kurt Suzuki and Perry, and which means this offseason is going to be an important one. Moving on to the staff. The biggest hire and the only one that I'm going to go over right now is Mike Maddux. They brought in Mike Maddux. They poached him from the Texas Rangers. And Mike Maddux is a very talented pitching coach. He's going to be a great move for the Angels for this young staff. And it's probably the best move that they could have made, especially since they're limited to the 1 year deal. Perfect move by Kurt Suzuki and Perry to get that done. Already, I have heard paid a decent amount to get Maddux. So that is good. Let's move on over to the Angels offseason moves so far. So they acquired Grayson Rodriguez for Taylor Ward with the Baltimore Orioles. Taylor Ward being shipped off to Baltimore, longtime Angels fan favorite. Taylor Ward was a great player for us. However, he is 31. He turns 32 later this month, so he is entering his age 32 season. Will be a free agent at the end of the 2026 season and will be a free agent at age 33. And of course, there is a lockout, so who knows how long the lockout's going to last. So more than likely, he might be closer to that 34. So it's perfect time to ship off Taylor Ward, and you got a very talented pitcher in return. You got Grayson Rodriguez, a potential ace if he can stay healthy. Pairing him up with Mike Maddux is a phenomenal move by the Angels. You got 4 years of control with Grayson Rodriguez. Yes, he is coming back from an injury. Yes, he missed all of 2025. Who cares? This is a phenomenal move by Perry and staff getting this done. And now Grayson Rodriguez, eventually, if he stays healthy, can be our ace, can be our number one starter. So great move, A+ by Perry Minasian. For the second Angels move this offseason, they signed Alek Manoah to a 1 year, $1.95 million deal. This is a major league deal. for Alek Manoah. He missed all of 2025. He was recovering from Tommy John surgery. He actually had a decent 2024. He had a 3.7 ERA in 24.1 innings. It was 5 starts before, getting taken down and having to get that Tommy John surgery. However, before that, Alek Manoah had some control issues, and Angel fans probably know Alek Manoah best as the guy that hit Taylor Ward in the face, who we just traded. So, Angel fans overall are pretty mixed. I, however, have been wanting Alek Manoah for a very long time. I'm happy that the Angels are giving him a chance. It's a 1-year deal. It's $1.95 million. Doesn't hurt anybody if he ends up failing. He has 2 options, so you can option him to the minor leagues. He doesn't have to start in the big leagues. Yes, it is a major league deal, but those 2 options are valuable. So right now, Alek Manoah, probably the role with the team, since they are still actually pursuing starters. Reed Detmers was already named a starter. Obviously, they got Grayson Rodriguez as well. So that's 4 starters. Alek Manoah is not being penciled in as the 5th starter as of this point, especially since they're still looking for starting pitching. Alek Manoah is probably going to end up being a swingman. So he'll probably start in the bullpen here and there. You'll see him make some spot starts, I imagine, in Grayson Rodriguez and Reed Detmer's spots here and there, since both of those guys were not starting pitchers last year. Grayson Rodriguez missed the whole season. Reed Detmers was in the bullpen. They are both, on a workload management system probably in 2026, and Alek Manoah will be able to fill that. He'll be able to help manage that workload, and whether here and there starting. So overall, I think it's a good move. It's a lot of upside. It's low risk, and I know Angel fans are tired of hearing low risk, high reward, but this move came once Mike Maddux was hired. Mike Maddux let him work with Alek Manoah, let him work with Grayson Rodriguez, put some trust in him, and see what happens. Hopefully, I don't think Alek Manoah is going to go back to that Cy Young finalist that he was in 2022. But if he can be an average pitcher, that'd be great. So that's where the Angels stand heading into the week. Now let's talk about the big one. Winter meetings start Sunday, and this year is shaping up to be one of the more active ones we've seen in recent years. Last year was pretty much a snooze fest. The year before that was a snooze fest. So seems like this one's going to be an active one. Angels have been mentioned a decent amount with rumors leading up to the week. But first, I wanted to kind of give you guys an overview of the winter meetings and how we should kind of shape up. And there's a good article here from Joe Trezza. Hopefully I'm saying that right, but he kind of gives you a good outline of what has happened, what should we expect is coming. So the big one, unfortunately, the Angels aren't really going to be active here, but the draft lottery. So last year, the Angels were, given the number 2 pick due to the draft lottery. This year, unfortunately, and it says it right here, neither the Rockies, Angels, nor Nationals are eligible for this year's lottery. They can pick no earlier than 10th, 11th, and 12th in the 2026 draft as a result, which is unfortunate, but unfortunately, that's the rules. It's to do with like competitive balance and stuff like that. Angels got to be were selected last year, so they can't be selected this year, things like that. So that's the reason for that. Now, the other important part is the Rule 5 draft. So the Rule 5 draft is going to take place on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So what is that? It's 11 a.m. Pacific. And it's going to be streamed live on MLB.com. So if you guys are interested, you guys can check that out. Basically, players signed at age 18 or younger have to be added to the team's 40-man roster within 5 seasons, and players signed at 19 or older must be added within 4 seasons, or else they become eligible for the Rule 5 selection by other organizations. Teams must pay $100,000 to select a player in the major league phase of the Rule 5 draft, and the player is required to remain on the 26-man roster for the full season. If the selecting team removes him from the roster, the player must first be offered back to his former team for $50,000. So last year was a pretty active one. The Angels did select Garrett McDaniels, and then he ended up getting hurt, I believe, and then he was returned to the Dodgers, and they did accept him back, if I'm not mistaken. So the big one, obviously, here is going to be free agent signings. There's a lot of big free agents. There are qualifying offer guys. So the qualifying offer guys are Dylan Cease, Kyle Schwarber, Ranger Suarez, Kyle Tucker, Framber Valdez, Bo Bichette, Edwin Diaz, Zach Gallen, and Michael King. Dylan Cease has already signed, so it doesn't matter. But specifically these last two are going to end up being pretty interesting. But yes, so in the case, if the Angels sign any of these free agents that are listed, Kyle Schwarber, Ranger Suarez, Kyle Tucker, Framber Valdez, Bo Bichette, Edwin Diaz, Zach Gallen, or Michael King, they will forfeit a second-round draft pick along with some draft pool money and international money as well that is tied to it. So in certain cases, teams might not want to sign these players due to giving up the draft pick and, the money as well. I honestly think all of these players are worth giving up a draft pick. The Angels aren't really known for developing players as of late, especially not first. Like, though the first rounders are fine, it's the ones drafted after that are a little less for sure talents. So, and don't get me wrong, this next draft is a very talented class. It's just, I think it's worth taking a more proven, specifically arm, in my opinion, instead of, trying to get a prospect, get them for 6 years, try to develop them and put them through the Angels system. I think it's better to just do this instead. Now that we've kind of gone around the winter meetings and what to expect a little bit as far as the importance aspects from the draft lottery, Rule 5 draft, and other things, there is actually going to be an article on this. I will personally be doing an article outlining the winter meetings on InsideHalos.com if you guys are interested. But let's bring it back to the Angels and we'll go over the rumors that dropped today. I'm pulling these straight from the Inside Halos X page. So that's going to be right here. And we are going to scroll down. So from today, we'll start here. So Mark Feinsand outlined top 5 starting pitchers available on the free agent market. And that is Ranger Suarez, Tatsuya Imai, Framber Valdez, Michael King, and Zach Gallen. Now, the interesting tidbits are at the bottom of Michael King and Zach Gallen. Michael King, sources tab the Yankees, Cubs, Mets, and Tigers as the most interested clubs, though others, including the Orioles, Angels, Padres, and Marlins, are also in the mix for King. King was coming off of an injury-plagued season. He ended up only pitching 73 and a third innings over 15 starts in 2025, but he did post a 3.44 ERA. And the season before, he went 13-9 with a 2.95 ERA, fanning 201 batters and a career high 173 2/3 innings. The guy is nasty, and he is a reliever turned starter. Famously traded in the Juan Soto trade to the Padres. Great starting pitcher, does have a qualifying offer attached, but probably going to end up costing around 20 million AAV, but certainly worth the qualifying offer if the Angels can land him. Now, going down, the other one is Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen coming off of a down year as well. He did post a career high ERA, 4.83 ERA, and a career low 89 ERA plus over 192 innings. He did have a better second half. However, he looked good in August and then had like a high 3 ERA in September and a little bit into October. But this is the interesting part. The Angels, Giants, and Tigers are among the teams in on Gallen, sources said, with the Orioles, Cubs, and Braves also looking at the 30-year-old. If the price tag on starters such as Suarez, Imai, and Valdez feels too high for some clubs, Gallen could be a strong alternative. Gallen was the ace of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He has had 5 pretty good seasons with the Diamondbacks. He did have one okay season, and then this most recent one was pretty bad. He would be a really interesting candidate to add to the top of the Angels rotation. He would instantly slot in as the number 1 guy. You do have potential with Grayson Rodriguez, who could be that number 1 guy eventually if healthy. However, Gallen is going to be up there for sure. Mike Maddux, his hands on him, hopefully he can light a fire in Gallen and get him back on track. So that would be the hope with Gallen there. Jumping back to the X page for Inside Halos, a couple of other interesting tidbits. Beyond the Halo posted this. Jeff Passan lists the Angels as a surprise team to watch at the winter meetings. Passan said directly the Los Angeles Angels, whose last major free agent signing for more than $65 million was Anthony Rendon in December 2019, and are still looking to bolster their rotation after trading for Grayson Rodriguez and signing Alek Manoah. So the Angels are still looking for a free agent, well, for a starter specifically, to bolster that rotation. They are listed as the surprise team. Whatever Jeff Passan says usually goes. He is definitely top dog for a reason. So very interesting that Jeff Passan said that. Hopefully the Angels are that team that surprises and shocks the world. And the most interesting part of his quote, last major free agent signing for more than $65 million was Anthony Rendon in December 2019. That is the most interesting part. I don't think he would put that unless the Angels were planning on spending probably bigger than that. So we last season they grabbed Kikuchi. This season, maybe hopefully a frontline starter. That's my hope, anyways. Now Robert Murray, he had some quotes for us here on the Baseball Insiders podcast. He hosted a Q&A, and he said, "We've seen Bassett. We've seen them connected to Zach Gallen. I can say confidently they are being connected to other players behind the scenes. I can't say their names as of this point, but they are being very active in the pitching front." So the most interesting part to me is the fact that he can't mention specific names as of this point. However, he can confidently say we are connected to other players behind the scenes. This is interesting because the Angels might be in on more of the top dogs. Framber Valdez, Tatsuya Imai, Ranger Suarez. Those are the top 3 starting pitchers on the board. Michael King, he didn't mention here either. However, Mark Feinsand mentioned him, so I wouldn't see why he wouldn't be able to, but who knows? It could be Michael King. It could be somebody higher than Michael King. Gallen, I think, is still an intriguing option, and so is Chris Bassett. Yes, Bassett on the older side. However, he's been one of the most consistent starters in baseball over the past 4 seasons, making 30-plus starts in each of those seasons. And another quote by Robert Murray, Artie Moreno loves offense. And does he pursue a guy like Bellinger? I don't think Bichette is going to end up being a fit there. Although that being said, can change pretty quickly. My thought is the Angels are going to be really deep into the pitching market there. That's an interesting one. Means that the Angels should be focusing on pitching and making that the priority. Specifically starting pitching. Hopefully they add one of those top starting pitchers. If they dip in more of the mid-tier market, I won't be nearly as happy, but like a Tyler Mahle would make me happy. Chris Bassett would make me happy, even though he is a little older, probably a 1 or 2 year deal. Zach Eflin is somebody I'm interested in. Coming off of an injury, could be a pretty nice piece if you can get him on a multi-year deal. And then there are others, Merrill Kelly as well, a little older, but has been very consistent as well, kind of like Bassett. Right now, Gallen is probably the guy that, in my mind, from reading all these rumors, is most likely, but we'll see. If we can land Gallen or King, I'll be stoked. If we can land somebody in the mid-tier, I'll be happy as well. So yeah, things are moving, and the Angels are clearly in the middle of a lot of conversations right now. We're going to see whether they add via free agency, via trade. Going to be interesting to see what happens and what comes to fruition this next week at the winter meetings. As always, though, we'll keep you updated on everything as it develops on Inside Halos, specifically on our Instagram and on X. Keep an eye on InsideHalos.com for more articles and rumors and official announcements as well. Join the Discord down below. And we're planning on having hopefully one more podcast throughout the winter meetings. Maybe 2 if there's big news. We might come in for big news here and there. But yeah, we are trying to get the podcast back up and running. I'm going to be on here a little bit more consistently as well. Something that, I paused for 2 years. At least for myself. We came back with Braden doing some interviews with some draft prospects that we ended up signing, drafting and signing. And then Jacob was doing some good podcasts with Jared Timms, as well as Taylor Blake Ward and Adam Weinerib. So we're back, and hopefully we are here for the long run. So thanks for listening to the Inside Halos podcast. Make sure you to follow on the socials Check out InsideHalos.com and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube. I'm Bryan Whitfield. I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace out.